How's it going? My name is AJ Stephen and I am a registered kinesiologist running my own practice in London, Ontario. I have been successfully doing so for over 4 years, and let me tell you, I have had to learn an awful lot to get to where I am now. In many cases, lessons were unfortunately learned the hard way. I would have certainly benefited from some guidance as I was getting established to help answer the many questions and concerns that I had, especially if it was from another kinesiologist or experienced health professional. I have developed this video to help guide you through important things to consider when starting your own kinesiology practice. I will be covering a variety of topics, including but not limited to registration, planning, invoicing, waivers, accounting, record keeping, website design, and social media. Now, I do have an important disclaimer before we get started. I am not an accountant, a business advisor, or a legal professional. The information in this webinar is presented for informational purposes only and is provided in good faith. I make no representation or warranty of any kind regarding the accuracy, adequacy, or completeness of any information provided. The information provided should not be considered as a substitute for competent legal, accounting, or other professional advice. This video also assumes that you are a registered member of the College of Kinesiologists of Ontario and in good standing. For more information on what is required to be a registered kinesiologist in Ontario, I recommend visiting the college's website, which is also located in the description below. If you are looking for a specific topic, every concept and time is presented here and can also be found in the description. So without further delay, let's talk about the things you need to start your business. The first thing you need to do is determine what kind of business structure you want to use. Businesses are successful when the owners and their team know exactly who they are and what their niche is. The three most common business types are sole proprietorships, partnerships, and corporations. There is also a fourth type known as a cooperative, but we're going to skip that one because most kinesiologists never end up using it. Sole proprietorship is the simplest model which one can use to operate a business. In this model, the business owner is personally responsible for its obligations, but benefits directly from its success. It can operate under the legal name of its owner, or it can do business under a fictitious name, like John Doe Kinesiologist, for example. Sole proprietorships are inexpensive to set up and relatively simple to administer. Your annual net income is fully taxable and is reported on your personal income tax return. Seems like a slam dunk choice, but there's a catch. Since you are the business, you are also personally liable in the event something bad happens. Meaning that if somebody decides to sue you for malpractice, injury, negligence, or any other reason, not only can they make a claim against your business assets, but your personal assets such as your car, house, or investments can also be seized to satisfy a court judgment. The good news is that if you're a kinesiologist in Ontario, you are required to carry liability insurance to protect you in case something like this were to happen. Another potential disadvantage is that the income you accumulate is going to be taxed at the personal income tax rate, which means that as you make more money, you might be paying a little bit more in income tax to the government compared to a business that is incorporated. Now that we know what a sole proprietorship looks like, how does it compare to the other two models? General partnership consists of two or more owners who combine resources to run a joint business. Partnerships have the same advantages and disadvantages as sole proprietorship, but in this case, they are shared between two or more people. These people are referred to as partners. If someone sues your practice, they can still make a claim against your personal assets, but also the assets of the other partners. All profits and losses are shared by the partners according to the terms of the partnership agreement they have in place. Some may consider this a good way to help spread out some of the risk and help divide up some of the workload associated with starting a business. This also allows the practice to achieve more benefit from the areas of expertise of the other partners. One major downside to partnerships is that disagreements may create a lot of tension between partners, which may stall or halt business growth. If you elect to go with a partnership, make sure all partners have the same goals for the business and that everyone has a clear understanding of their role. I recommend creating a written partnership agreement to make things a little bit easier. Your partnership agreement should also include a termination clause. This clause outlines the way in which the assets and liabilities of the business will be divided between or among the partners, and also determines the process process applied to terminate the partnership, ensuring that all obligations of the partners are properly discharged. The third and final option is incorporation. A corporation is recognized in law as a separate legal entity from its shareholders, meaning instead of you being the business, you own and manage the business. This is a popular model for individuals looking to limit liability and benefit more from flexible remuneration options. And although some individuals are able to limit personal liability by incorporating their businesses, as a regulated health professional in Ontario, you are subject to restrictions. An Ontario regulated health professional can still be held personally liable even if services were rendered through a corporation. Which brings me back to my previous point about why liability insurance is so important to have and why it is mandatory to be a member of the College of Kinesiologists. So the major benefit to be gained as a kinesiologist from incorporation is greater flexibility in distributing profits earned by the business. Incorporating a business does have some drawbacks, including the upfront cost of incorporation, which ranges anywhere from $360 if you do it on your own, up to as much as $1,000 if you hire professionals to do it for you. All in all, this model may be worth looking into down the road as your practice expands, but not if you're just starting out. So what type of business structure do I recommend? Unless you're already making a six-figure income, start with a sole proprietorship. This is what I did. It gets you started quickly and easily without spending a heck of a lot of money and creating extra administrative complexity. If you choose to start a corporation, you will be looking at higher registration and accounting fees, which will cost you added time and money that you may not have. Once you've selected your business type, you will then need to acquire a master business license from the Government of Ontario. This will cost you anywhere from $60 to $80 and protects your business name from being used by anybody else. The Master Business License is valid for 5 years and allows you to operate a business within Ontario, open bank and tax accounts, obtain checks, and produce promotional content such as business cards and flyers. This process is fairly straightforward and can be done online via the Ontario government's website, which is located in the description below. Once you have your Master Business License, you will then need to decide whether or not to register for a business number and GST/HST account through the Canada Revenue Agency. If you don't plan on earning more than $30,000 over 4 consecutive quarters, registration is not mandatory and you do not need to charge HST to clients. That being said, I highly recommend registering for 3 reasons. Number 1, if you're serious about building your business and are good at what you do, you are probably going to hit $30,000 of revenue pretty fast. And once you reach that threshold, you are legally required to register for GST/HST and charge it to your clients. 2, registering for HST allows you to recover most HST that you pay to your business suppliers, which could save you a lot of money over the long term. More about that later. And 3, it's free to register and it's a good idea to get it done early and out of the way. This may also make things a little less messy when it comes to accounting and doing your taxes later on. The process to register for a business number and GST/HST account can be found online on the Government of Canada's website, and you will need a few things prior to getting started, including your social insurance number and master business license number from before. Assuming that you plan on practicing in Ontario, that is all you need to do to satisfy government obligations. When you factor in the total cost of licensing and registration to practice, you are looking at spending anywhere from $60 to about $1,000. Now that that's sorted out, next comes the task of determining how you plan on delivering your service. So let's dive in. Do you plan on renting space from an established health clinic or opening up your own studio? Perhaps you intend on providing your services online or bringing them directly to a client's home. Whatever you decide to do, you will need a plan of attack to get this done. In other words, a business plan. Writing a well thought out and organized business plan will dramatically increase your chances of succeeding on your own as a kinesiologist. A good business plan can help determine whether your practice has a chance of making a profit acceptable to you, provide an estimate of your startup costs, revenues, and ongoing expenses, provide an analysis of the market you plan to compete in, including current competitors, and anticipate potential problems so you can prevent them before they occur. A good business plan for a kinesiology kinesiology practice ranges anywhere from 5 to 15 pages in length and covers a variety of topics. The most important sections for you to focus in on as a kinesiologist include the following. First is the executive summary. This is a concise summary illustrating the key points that are detailed in each section of the ensuing business plan. I recommend typing this up last. Next is the business overview. This provides a description of your business, including the legal structure, business formation history, the type of business, location, and means of doing business. All in all, this section is pretty straightforward and shouldn't take too long to complete. Next up, we have the market analysis. This section includes an overview of the market as a whole, what your target market looks like, and your plans to cater to this specific audience. Following that, we have products and services. Describe in detail the services you plan to offer. Don't just say kinesiology. That could mean anything. Go into detail as to what you plan on doing with each client that hires you. Classify each product or service and provide a detailed description of each. Next up, we have sales and marketing. In addition to outlining pricing and sales information, include rationalizations for why your audience will buy your services and how you will reach them through marketing and advertising efforts. Really important tip. Before finalizing your plan to start marketing your services, make sure you have clearly outlined the following 4 P's. First is price. Be clear on what your rates are. Set them firm from day one and try not to deviate from them. The second P is product. Make sure you clearly specify which type of service you are offering. Again, do not just say kinesiology services. This won't cut it with the average person. Third P is place. This is very important for potential clients to know so that they know exactly where to reach you and if you can become of assistance. The fourth P is people. Do you plan on working with a specific demographic? If not, I highly recommend at least trying to promote a specific niche. And this is because the scope of practice of kinesiology is very diverse. Working with a specific niche prevents you from looking like a jack of all trades, which may turn potential clients off if they are looking for an expert. Back to the business plan. The next section is your competitive analysis. Analyze the strengths and weaknesses of your direct and indirect competitors and demonstrate how you will gain an edge against them. What makes you different from many other health professionals operating in your target market? Why will people decide to hire you? Is it price, experience, good looks? You tell me. The last section of your business plan involves finances and projections. This includes all financial information from startup costs to balance sheets. This section should outline the amount of startup funds necessary and where they will be sourced from, cash flow projections for the first 2 to 5 years, including income streams, and a detailed budget of expected expenses such as salaries, rent, insurance, promotional material, and others, and provisions for sourcing additional funding if required. When starting up a new practice, you will undoubtedly encounter unanticipated expenses. Establishing a loyal client base as soon as possible will help you tremendously handle the unexpected. This probably seems like a lot of work, and don't get me wrong, it certainly is. But I cannot stress enough how important it is to have a detailed plan in place to help set you up for success and help identify any barriers or problems well in advance. If you fail to plan to fail. With this plan in place, you are one step closer to landing clients. But prior to proceeding to treatment, you need to make sure each client has been given informed consent. Informed consent can be obtained many different ways, but in my experience, the easiest and most effective method is by having the client read and sign a liability waiver. The liability waiver not only covers informed consent, but also adds a layer of protection to you in the event that there is a mishap with a client. You could get a lawyer to draft one up for you, but keep in mind that this will likely cost several $100s, and at the end of the day, even if the client signs the waiver and gives informed consent, they can still sue you for malpractice or negligence. Simply put, liability waivers are not a bulletproof way to avoid getting sued. If you decide to create one, make sure the waiver specifically refers to the nature and expected benefits of the treatment you plan on administering. There are many free waiver templates available online that you can download and modify, which will likely do the trick just fine. And there is also a wealth of information regarding informed consent on the college's website, which I highly recommend having a look through for guidance as to what should be included in your consent form. Now that you've started practicing, you will need to establish a way to get paid for your services. Let's take a closer look at that. The main way to get paid for your services as a kinesiologist is to prepare and deliver an invoice to your clients. As a kinesiologist, your invoices should include the following. First, the word invoice. This sounds silly, but this differentiates an invoice from a quote, credit note, or receipt. Each of these is quite different from the other. Next, you need an invoice number. This number must be unique to each invoice for clear identification. You also must keep a record of the numbers and references used. Following that is your business name and address. This includes the name of your practice, business address, and where you can be contacted by the client in case of query or dispute. You'll also need the name and address of your client, which you would have hopefully obtained during a pre-screening, a summary description of the services you have provided, with each service and/or item listed on a separate line, your kinesiologist registration number, which is especially important if your client plans on submitting your services to insurance or as medical expenses come tax time, the date that the service was provided, and the date that the invoice was generated. There is a difference between the two. Make sure you outline each correctly. Next is the total amount payable. If you are registered for HST, the tax should be shown on a separate line. Following that are the payment terms, which represent the length of time before payment is due. Next include how to pay the invoice. I recommend including multiple forms of payment such as cash, credit, and/or e-transfer. If you accept checks, be sure to indicate who the checks are payable to. And finally, an appreciation note of some kind near the bottom of the invoice. You can create your own invoice as I've done here, or alternatively use invoicing software available online, many of which are free. Getting all these activities completed shouldn't cost you much money, but the amount of time you invest could be considerable. This stage is super critical to the success of your practice. Take the appropriate amount of time to do this thoroughly if you are serious about succeeding. All right, now things are about to get a little bit tedious because the next thing to decide on is your accounting system or accountant. I know a lot of health professionals really struggle with this. Accounting and kinesiology don't really go hand in hand. Because of this, new kinesiologists and health professionals can be really caught off guard by the amount of administrative tasks required to run a business. Not to mention the tax bill they may face at the end of the year. And a situation you really need to avoid is not setting aside enough money to pay your taxes. So how can you learn the basics of accounting? The best way to do this is to design a spreadsheet in Excel detailing all money flowing into and out of your business, including income, expenses, mileage, and everything else relevant. This can take a fair bit of time to set up and maintain, so if you don't have the patience for this, you can hire an accountant to explain it to you, or pay for software like QuickBooks that can do most of the work for you. Hiring an accountant will likely cost anywhere from $200 to $500 an hour, and QuickBooks software will cost you approximately $30. I also strongly recommend creating business bank accounts and credit cards to help keep your business and personal finances separate from each other. I use a business checking account for day-to-day transactions and set aside all HST I've collected in the savings account until it is remitted to the CRA. Ensuring that you record all transactions promptly will help you stay organized and will make things much easier when doing year-end accounting and tax filings. Now, you may be asking yourself, does the type of business I register affect how the accounting is done? The answer to that question is yes. Accounting is much easier for a sole proprietorship or general partnership in comparison to an incorporated business. If you are a sole proprietor or in a general partnership, I actually recommend trying to do your own accounting, at least for the first few years. You'll learn quite a bit about running a business, potentially identify inefficiencies or areas where you can increase profitability, and save yourself a good amount of money in accountant fees. On the other hand, if you decide to incorporate, hire an accountant. Seriously, this stuff gets really complicated. You'll end up spending more time trying to teach yourself than you will just hiring a professional who can handle it for you. If you decide to go this route, I highly recommend interviewing several before deciding to work with one. Choose an accountant that you can relate to and understand the most. The total cost of accounting ultimately depends on how much work you want to do yourself and which business model you have for your practice. But if you're willing to take the time to learn, the costs should be minimal at best. So as of right now, you've registered with the government, made a plan, created a way to obtain informed consent, get paid, and do your accounting. The final step involves setting up your online presence. This is a pretty big topic, so let's get to work. Each year, approximately 80,000 new businesses spring up in Canada. And although not all of them are in direct competition with you, creating an effective online presence is critical for promotional purposes and to maximize potential exposure to new clients. Establishing a solid online presence involves the creation of a website, email address, Google business page, and social media accounts. Let's start with a website. If you are serious about building a successful kinesiology practice, do not use a free website, because when using a free website, you essentially get what you pay for. Poor design, unreliable security, slower load times, limited customization, random advertisements and spam, and limited technical support are just a few of the issues you will experience when using free websites. These make you and your business look unprofessional and will absolutely cause prospective clients to look elsewhere for their needs. Simply put, if you want to come across as a professional to your clients, you need a professional website representing your practice. And in order to get a professional website, you're gonna have to pay for it. The cost of building a website ranges anywhere from $0 to over $10,000, depending on its complexity, look appeal, features, and whether you decide to hire someone else to help you. There are many web developers out there that would be happy to help build a website for you, but for a kinesiologist just starting out, this can get very costly. I highly recommend checking out one of the many free website builders available online. There you can build and design your own website without any risk before deciding to purchase a plan. Pricing is upfront and honest for the most part, and they do a lot of the heavy lifting for you in terms of securing a domain name, hosting, and general website maintenance. The annual cost, if you decide to go this route, ranges anywhere from $175 to $300 per year, depending on the plan you decide to go with. And if for whatever reason you're not happy with the provider, in many cases you can cancel at any time. All in all, this is a pretty low risk scenario if you are just starting out and on a tight budget. Now, I will say that creating an effective website on your own from scratch will take some time. If you decide to go this route, make sure you include the following on your website to keep it competitive and attractive to potential clients. First is the name of your practice clearly defined and described. Your practice's name is the first thing a new visitor goes through, and a good description can get your readers' attention and interest fast. You should explain what your practice provides, what led you to start your practice, what your goals are, what services and value you offer, and what you hope to accomplish. This can be done in the form of a mission statement, which plays a key role in giving potential clients a better understanding of who you are and what you stand for. The chances of a potential new client staying on your website for longer and eventually contacting you increases considerably when these pieces are in place and clearly visible. Next is an easy to remember and type web address. A web address that is easy to remember and easy to type in a web browser helps keep your client thinking about your services well after they have left your site. Following that is a prominent call to action. You want your visitors to do something after providing them with all the necessary information. In your case, you want them to contact you to get a quote or hire you. Your call to action should be placed at a prominent position so that customers know what action you want them to take. Place a large, clear button to conveniently navigate customers to the final step. Next up, you need an easy way for people to get in touch with you. How foolish would it be to lose an interested client by providing contact details that are difficult to find, or even worse, not providing them at all? Providing easy to find contact information is extremely important, as not every client can wait to click through a series of pages to get to them. Make your contact information noticeable. The next thing your site should have is fresh, original content. In order to stay competitive as a health professional, you must provide value to your visitors. Content does this by keeping visitors on your website and setting you apart from other similar sites. Fresh and quality content is not only useful for visitors, but it is extremely important for search engines too. Google loves to find and promote quality content. The more content you have on your website, the more value it offers to visitors, and as a result, Google considers your website as useful and reliable. It's a good idea to start a blog on your company website where you can post quality articles relevant to your business or services from time to time. This way, your site will stay competitively ranked by Google, and your visitors continue to get value from you as a health professional. All of this plays an extremely important role in getting you more clients. If you are looking for suggestions to get your website started, feel free to visit mine at ajsteven.com. Once you've got your website up and running, you will then need to set up an email address. Just like for your website, I highly advise against using a free email account for your practice. Not only does it look unprofessional for you to be using a free email service like Gmail or Yahoo, but you are sacrificing a tremendous opportunity to get the name of your practice on the mind of this new potential client. Using a free email address may also cause potential clients to mistake you for spam or not take you seriously as a professional. Most of the website builders I talked about earlier will allow you to set up an email account using G Suite by Google. Although there are many email providers out there, G Suite is the only one that I personally recommend. It essentially gives you all of the functionality of Gmail using your own domain name and email address. G Suite is easy, user-friendly, fast, and relatively inexpensive. For one email address, you're looking at between $7 to $10 a month, which is a pretty fair price in my opinion, considering what you are getting in return. The process to set this up is fairly straightforward and can either be done directly on your website builder or by going directly to G Suite. Once you've secured your email address, it is now time to set up a Google Business account. The good news is that it is free to set up. With a Google Business account, you can easily connect to your customers via Google Search and Maps. Prospective clients will type in the service they are looking for, and then boom, your business pops up. The account also boasts a number of valuable features such as photos, descriptions, and posts, which add more value to your business. Another extremely valuable feature this account has is the ability to allow clients to leave a review about your practice. This is a pretty big deal because as a regulated health professional, you are not allowed to post client reviews or testimonials directly on your website. But since your Google Business page is always open for clients to post reviews about your practice, whether they be positive or negative at any time, this is acceptable and does not violate the college's advertising guidelines. All reviews remain public, cannot be removed, and in my experience are one of the best ways for potential new clients to get to know and trust you before they decide to hire you, especially if the majority of the reviews are positive. Your Google Business account also gives you the option to advertise via Google Ads, which is an easy and relatively inexpensive way to increase your online exposure. This process is pretty easy to follow, and the link to getting started can be found in the description below. Now that that is done, let's have a look at social media. Social media is a very effective and free way to further enhance your presence online. You don't have to create a profile on every social media site out there, but you should select a few where you feel your practice will fit in best. For my practice, I use Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn because my target audience is most likely to be found on these platforms. Social media offers very reasonable rates if you want to advertise, and you can specify your target based on interests, age, gender, geographical location, and even income levels. Make sure if you commit to one of these social media platforms, you regularly post information and content that potential clients might find useful. Before starting to create some of these accounts, I highly recommend checking out the social media and advertising guidelines set out by the College of Kinesiologists. In general, when you put all of these factors into consideration, the total cost to get your practice online will likely run anywhere between $350 to over $5,000, depending predominantly on how you decide to build your website. Keep in mind that there are many other topics that could be discussed that are important to help get your kinesiology practice up and running successfully. That being said, if you are able to complete the steps discussed in this video in their entirety, you should be well on your way to, at the very least, giving your practice a good start. Thank you so much for watching, and best of luck on your future endeavors and success.